Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Techie World. Now in our previous video, we have learned how to apply CSS in our HTML web page. Now in this video, we are going to learn about selectors in CSS. So now the question is, what is selector? Guys, selector is a type in CSS that is used to select one or more HTML tag to provide them style. Now, in CSS, mainly there are two types of selectors. There are simple selectors and combinator selectors. And in simple selector, we have four types, and in combinator selector also we have four types. Now, let's see the types in simple selectors and combinator selectors. So, now the first type in simple selector is universal selector, second one is grouping selector, third one is ID and class selector, and fourth one is element name selector. Now in combinator selector, first we have a descendant selector, then child selector, then adjacent sibling selector, then general sibling selector. So guys, now let's start with simple selector. And also, for better understanding, I'll be telling you the simple selector in reverse order. Means first I'll be telling you element selector, then ID and class selector, then grouping selector, and after that universal selector. Now first let's start with element selector. Now what is element selector? Guys, element selector is used to select a HTML tag by its name. So now let's understand this element selector using one example. So guys, now I am on my VS Code, and over here I have one tute2.html, which is HTML document, and over here I have one heading and one paragraph. Now let me open this HTML document in Chrome browser. Now you can see I got it something like this. Now guys, let's understand element selector over here. So let's say I want to give color red to my paragraph. So what I can do is first I have to create one HTML file. So I'll name it as style.css, enter, and over here I'll select the paragraph tag to give it the style of color red. So I'll select this paragraph tag by its name, that is P. So guys, this selecting of paragraph tag by its name, that is P, is only called as element selector. We already know that. So now I'll give it as color red. So now this color over here is property colon, and red is the value, and now semicolon. And now I'll save it. So Ctrl+S, and I'll save my HTML document also. And now I'll go to my browser. Wait a second. Oh yeah, one thing I left is that I forgot to link my CSS file with my HTML file. So we have to link it. So link CSS. So you can see style.css. So my CSS has been linked. So I'll save it, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see I got a red color for my paragraph. So same way I can give a color, let's say blue, to my heading 1 by selecting it by its name. So h1, that is its name, and curly braces, and over here color red. Okay, so not red, let's say blue, and a semicolon. And now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see I got a color blue for my heading and a color red for my paragraph. So guys, I hope you would have understood about the element selector. Now we'll move on to ID and class selector. So guys, now we already know about element selector, and now we'll learn about ID and class selector. So the question is, what is ID and class selector? So guys, ID and class selector means that you provide a unique ID or a class to any of the HTML tag, and you select those HTML tag in CSS through that ID, ID and class only. Now let's understand this ID and class by using some examples. So guys, in element selector we saw that we can select a HTML tag by its name in CSS, and we can provide whatever style we want. Now let's see about ID and class selector. So guys, before moving on to ID and class selector, we'll learn that what problem we have with element selector. Now let's say we have 4 paragraphs, that are para 1, para 2, para 3 and para 4. Now I'll go to my browser, and you can see here I got para 1, para 2, para 3, para 4. Now I'm getting this all 4 paragraphs in the color red. Now the question is how I'm getting them in the color red. So guys, over here I have selected the paragraph and given the color as red. Now element selector rules say that if you have given the paragraph color as red, then it will be provided to all the paragraphs inside the HTML document. So when I am giving it the color red over here, it is being provided to all my paragraphs. Now let's say I want this color red for my para 2 and para 3 only. Then what I can do? So guys, for that situation only we need ID or class selector. So let's say first we'll learn ID selector. So let's say I'll give ID equals para, and over here also same ID for my third para 3. So ID para. Now I'll save this, and over here in CSS I'll select this ID, means that paragraph with that ID. So to select a ID, first we need to put the ID symbol, that is hashtag, and after that ID name, that is para. Now I'll put curly braces, and over here I will give the color, that is color equals red. Okay. Now over here I'll increase the font size also. So let's say font size XX large. Now I'll save this, but before saving I'll remove this paragraph, like this element selector for paragraph. Now I'll save this, and I'll go to the browser, and you can see I got a color red for my paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. Let's say now let's learn about class selector. So guys, class selector is also same as ID selector. So let's say I'll give a class for my para 1, and let's say para 1. The class name is para 1, and same class for my para 4 also. So class para 1. Okay. Now I'll save this, and over here I'll select my paragraph with the class para 1. So to select a class, first we need to put the class symbol, that is dot. And after that class name, that is para 1. Now curly braces, and here I'll give the color blue. Color. Oh, wait a second. There's a problem that instead of curly braces I put the square box. Now over here I'll give the color property, that is color, and color as blue. Now I'll save this, and I'll go to the browser, and you can see my para 1 and para 4 got the color blue. So guys, now let's understand how this ID and class selector works. So guys, whenever we give this ID selector over here, guys, this ID selector searches for every HTML tag with the same ID over here, that is para. Now it will search over here for the same ID, that is para, and it will get over here and here. Now when it will get the same ID, it will provide whatever property we have written inside this curly braces to those tags with that same ID. Now same happens with a class also. When we give the class selector, this class selector searches every HTML tag with the same class. It will search over here and it will get the class para1 for para1 and para4. So it will give the style whatever we are given here to that para1 and para4. Now guys, you might have a doubt that what is difference between ID and class. Guys, technically there is no difference between ID and class, but to follow the professional standard, we write only one unique ID for one HTML tag. So here we have written a ID that is para for para2, but we have written same ID for para3 also. So as per the professional standard, this is wrong, because we can only write one unique ID for one paragraph only. I mean, not one paragraph, one tag, HTML tag only. But this doesn't happen with class, because we can provide a same type same named class to numbers of tags. So guys, I hope you would have understood about the ID and class selector. So now let's move on to grouping selector. So guys, now we know about element selector, ID and class selector. So now we'll learn about grouping selector. Now the question is, what is grouping selector? Guys, grouping selector means that you make a group of tags and you select them in CSS and you provide the style. So guys, let's understand this by using some examples. So guys, now I am on my VS Code, and over here I have one HTML document, and in this HTML document I have one heading, paragraph and one more heading. So let me open this in Chrome browser, and you can see I got it something like this. Now guys, let's say I want a color red for all these three tags that are heading, paragraph and one more heading. So what I can do? Guys, there are n number of ways to do this. One of the ways is, which I don't prefer, that is we can just select the tags, that is h1, and I can give the color right, okay, and same way I can select paragraph and give the color paragraph and give the color red, and I can select h3 also and I can give color red. Now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see I got the output. Now guys, we have one more way that is more easier than this and shorter than this. That is only called grouping selector. Guys, instead of selecting these three tags three times, we can select it at once only, and we can give the style at once only. Over here, by putting the comma, we can select paragraph also. By putting comma, we can select h3 also. Now I'll remove this, and I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see there is no change in output, so our answer is same. And over here I'll change the color to show you that our method is working, means grouping selector is working. And now guys, you can see I got a color blue for my all tags. Guys, grouping selector means that you select all the tags at once and give the same style to all the tags that you have selected. So guys, I hope you would have understood about the grouping selector. Now we'll move on to universal selector. So guys, now we know about element selector, ID and class selector, then grouping selector. Now let's learn about universal selector. So guys, now the question is what is means about universal selector. Guys, universal selector means that selecting all elements of HTML and providing them the same style. Means when you will use universal selector, you will select every HTML tag and you will provide the same style to all of those tags. Now let's understand this universal selector by using some examples. So guys, now I am on my VS Code and over here you can see I have one HTML file and one CSS file. Now in this HTML I have 3 tags that are h1, p, then h3. Now I'll use universal selector and provide them a style. So let's say I'll use universal selector over here. So guys, the symbol of universal selector is this wait a second, is this star. By using this star you can use universal selector. Now after this star we have to put the curly braces, and after this curly braces, in this curly braces we can write whatever style we want. So let's say color blue. Now I'll save this, I'll remove this grouping selector from here and I'll save this. And when I'll go to the browser, wait a second, yeah, you can see my every tag of HTML got a same color, that is blue. So universal selector means that selecting every tag of HTML and providing them a same style, what I have written over here. So guys, now our simple selector types are over. Now we'll move on to combinator selector. So now let's move on to combinator selectors. So guys, now we learned about every simple selector types. Now we'll move on to combinator selector. Guys, as we know that in in combinator selector also we have 4 types, that are descendant selector, child selector, adjacent sibling selector, then we have general sibling selector. So guys, in combinator selector, first we'll be learning descendant and child selector together. Now let's start with descendant selector. So guys, now the question is what is mean by descendant selector. Guys, descendant selector means that selecting direct and indirect childs of a parent. Now let's understand this with an example. So guys, let's say we have a div, that is div 1. Now inside this div 1 we have 2 paragraphs, and inside this div 1 we also have one more div, that is div 2, and inside this div 2 we also have 2 paragraphs, that are para 3 and para 4. Now guys, this para 1 and para 2 are called direct child of this div 1, but this para 3 and para 4 are called indirect child of the parent div 1. Now guys, let's say we want to give style to our direct child also, that is para 1 and para 2, and our indirect child also, that is para 3 and para 4. Then we use descendant selector. But when we have to only give the style to our direct childs, that are para 1 and para 2, then we use child selector. Now guys, we'll be learning this more clearly by using more examples. So guys, now I am on my VS Code and over here I have one HTML file and a CSS file. And now over here let's understand the descendant selector and child selector. So first I'll remove this, and I think so I removed body closing tag also, so I'll give one body closing tag. Oh sorry, yeah. Now guys, over here I'll put one div dot div1. So now you'll think that why I'm putting this div.div1. So guys, when I'll type like this div.div1, then I with a div I'll get a class for it that will be named as div1. So enter, and you can see I got a class for it that is div1. Now inside this I'll write one paragraph, and I'll write para1. Okay, and one more paragraph, and I'll name it I'll write para2. Oh, sorry. Now inside this I'll create one more div, and I'll give it a class as div2. Now enter, and over here I'll copy the same thing. I'll just change the numbers, 3 and 4 over here. So I'll save it. Wait a second, I'll save it, and when I'll go to the browser, oh wait a second, I think so I've given universal select is there, so I'll remove this and I'll save it, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see I got my para1, para2, para3 and para4. So this para1 and para2 are there in div1, and para3 and para4 are there in div2. Now let's understand descendant selector. So guys, let's say we want a color blue for my para1, para2, para3 and para4. Then I can use descendant selector, we know that. But how to use that? So for that we need to write the div name, that is div, then the class name, that is div1, and after that one space, and after that the tags name. For that we want to give the style, that is my paragraph, and inside this curly braces I can write color blue. Now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see all my paragraphs got a color blue. And now I'll increase the font size also because they're too small, so font size XX large. Now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see I got it something like this. Now guys, when I only want to select my direct childs that are para1 and para2, then I use child selector. I know that. So how to use that? So guys, to use that, instead of this space, we need to put the lesser than sign, this lesser than sign over here in front of the P, that is paragraph tag. In front of the paragraph tag, we need to put this lesser than symbol. Now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see only my direct childs got that style, that is font size increase and color blue. So guys, I hope you would have understood about the descendant selector and child selector. Now let's move on to adjacent sibling selector and general sibling selector. So guys, now let's learn about adjacent sibling selector and general sibling selector. Guys, let's say we have one heading, and after that we have one paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. So guys, this paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 over here are the siblings of that heading 1. Now guys, this paragraph 1 is the adjacent sibling of the heading 1. Now guys, let's say if you want to give a color blue to my paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 respect to heading, then we can use general sibling selector. But when we have to only give the color blue to our adjacent sibling selector, that is paragraph 1, then we use adjacent sibling selector, as the name only says, adjacent sibling selector. So guys, now let's understand this using some examples. So guys, now I am in my VS Code, and over here, let's say I'll put one heading 1, but before putting the heading 1, I'll remove this, and here I'll put one heading 1, and inside this I'll write head 1, and below this I'll write one paragraph, and I'll name it as, I'll put para 1 inside this, and one more paragraph, and I'll put and I'll type para 2 inside this. Now I'll save this and I'll go to the browser. You can see I got it something like this. So guys, this para 1 and para 2 are siblings of this head 1, but this para 1 is adjacent sibling of head 1. So guys, let's say I want to give a color blue for my para 1 and para 2. Then I can use general sibling selector. But when I only want to give a color blue for my para 1, then I can use adjacent sibling selector. So guys, now I'll give this para 1 and para 2 a color blue using general sibling selector. So I'll select it through first we have to put the heading, that is h1, then after that tilde symbol, that is this one, and after that we have to write p, that are sibling selectors, and not sibling selector, that are siblings of h1. These paragraphs are siblings of this h1. So I'll put curly braces over here and I'll put the color blue and I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see they got a color blue. But when I only want to give a color blue for my adjacent sibling selector, that is para 1, then I use adjacent sibling selector. The symbol of adjacent sibling selector is addition symbol, that is this plus symbol. Now I'll save this, and when I'll go to the browser, you can see only my para 1 got a color blue. So guys, I hope you would have understood about the adjacent sibling selector and general sibling selector. So guys, now let's summarize what we have learned in this whole video. So guys, in this whole video we learned about simple selector, combinator selector and their types. So I hope you understood this. So let's meet in next video with some new CSS topic. So till then, be connected. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.